CNU morning, everyone. In this time of ordeal, a lot of areas in the society have been affected, and one of them are our students. Recent data shows that the dropout rate of first and second year undergraduate students have increased ever since the pandemic came. The goal of our study is to find out the reasons why first and second year undergraduates drop out of school and develop a preventive measures and interventions for them. With the help of the following related literatures, we had an in-depth understanding of our study. First, a comparative study of dropout rates and causes for two different distance education courses. The purpose of this study is to investigate the factors and root causes leading students to drop out. In this study, the researcher examined the reasons why on students enrolled in two different distance education programs of study opted to drop out. It was in this study that the researchers compared two different courses targeting two distinct groups of students, undergraduate and graduate, and it revealed that there is a considerable similarities in terms of dropout percentage and underlying reasons that compelled time to interrupt or discontinue their studies. This article played a vital role in our study since it revealed the underlying factors why students from two different courses have similar reasons from dropping out. Second, learning and earning losses from COVID-19 school closure in developing Asia. This paper examines the impact of COVID-19 to school closure across developing Asia and how this disruption affects the education of the student. The study discusses on how COVID-19 pandemic has impacted many schools across Asia and how it has altered students' mode of learning. The shift in their method of instruction has contributed to people's ultimate dropout. This is one of the reasons why we decided to include this into our related literature, because it defines the lesser known variables that contributed to student dropouts and explains how they are all connected. Third, simulating the potential impacts of COVID-19 school closures on schooling and learning outcomes, a set of global estimates. This paper presents the result of simulations considering 3, 5, and 7 months of school closure in different levels of mitigation, effectiveness resulting its optimistic, intermediate, and pessimistic global scenarios. This study showed its relatedness to our study by showing how economic contractions such as reduced public budgets and household incomes can affect school attainment and learning. The simulated effects are used to inform mitigation, recovery, and developing better strategies. Fourth, impact of coronavirus pandemic on education. The study investigated the impact of COVID-19 on education. It was also investigated in this study the various challenges that hinder or continued in online education during the COVID-19 lockdown. The study gave information about how the coronavirus pandemic created a drastic impact in our educational system and what are the factors that hinder students to stop attending online classes during lockdowns, resulting to educational discontinuity. Fifth, the impact of COVID-19 on education. Insights from Education at a Glance 2020. This article aims to provide insights into the economic consequences of COVID-19 to education. The following topics are discussed in this article: loss of instructional time delivered in a school setting, teachers' preparedness to support digital learning, school shutdowns and online learning and educational discontinuity. The article delivered answers to our second sub-problem, which tackles about the factors and causes why students drop out. It talked about economic consequences, adjustments to the mode of learning, and school closures resulting to disjointness in education.
The sixth one is, do we know whom to serve? Issues in using risk factors to identify dropouts. The purpose in this study is to investigate which factors are correlated with dropping out. It was in this study that the researchers used risk factors in trying to identify future dropouts. This article showed its interconnectedness to our topic by exposing risk factors and other causes to create preventive measures to lessen the number of student dropouts in the future. It also delivered some answers to our third sub-problem. Seventh, a case study into the causes of school dropout. The purpose of this study is to investigate the causes of school dropout. Research that has been carried out into this study leads to the conclusion that there has been an increased rate of dropout in the number of students facing school adjustment problems. This article answers our second and third sub-problems, which ask about the factors causing the increased rate of dropouts and how to lessen it. It also talks about how just identifications and analysis of these factors would reveal the measures that can aid in lessening this phenomenon. The next one is the causes of student absenteeism and school dropouts. The aim of this study is to present the causes of student absenteeism and school dropouts and to develop some suggestions regarding the solution of the problems. 5 categories were found in this research that cause student absenteeism and school dropouts. These categories were determined as: first, causes originating from the family; second, causes originating from director and teacher behaviors; causes originating from the school setting; and causes originating from the student and environmental causes. This study discussed how absenteeism and school dropouts are predictors of the existing and future problems of the current educational system. This is very applicable for us researchers because our main problem talks about the increased number of dropouts in this time of crisis. School motivation and school dropout. The mediating role of educational expectation. The aim of this study is to examine the mediating role of students' educational expectations in linking students' school motivation to their dropout status. This research shows how a motivating notion of a student may influence the student's decision whether or not they drop out. The research helps us to evaluate the influence of student motivation while the student decide whether to quit or not, as it is a part of the key aspects of our study. The 10th one is comparing dropouts and persistence in e-learning courses. This study explores 2 main constructs. First, academic locus of control, and second, student satisfaction with e-learning. In this study, it was revealed that student satisfaction with e-learning or the online learning is a key indicator in students' decision to drop out from e-learning courses. Moreover, dropout students or the non-completers reported to have significantly lower satisfaction with e-learning than students who successfully completed, or what we call the completers or the persistent students from the same e-learning courses. This study expressed how e-learning courses are associated with the increase of student dropouts. Student satisfaction were somehow not met in this mode of learning, making them feel unmotivated and less attached to their school, which results to a discontinuity in their education.
Reasons for student dropout in an online course in rural setting. This study discusses the reasons why students who enrolled in an online advanced placement course subsequently dropped the course. So the information in this study aids us with the necessary literature about how and why students learning online are dropping out. Result from this research indicates that scheduling and time constraints, academic rigor and motivation, technology problems, problems with online medium and lack of teacher immediacy, and parental influences are common reasons why students chose to quit. Finding the reasons and defining the common factors of student dropouts is a common goal that we share with our research, such as why it has become a part of our review of related literature. Educational challenges and opportunities of coronavirus pandemic. This article discusses on what the COVID-19 pandemic is causing to more than 1.6 billion children and youth to be out of school in 161 countries. Losses in learning, increased dropout rates, and poverty are the highlights of this article. The article educates us on many ways in which people may connect with students, instructors, and parents through technology and social media sources. The article's core concept has been included in our study since it is consistent with our research objectives as we seek methods and answers to this dilemma. Trajectory of University Dropout, investigating the cumulative effect of academic vulnerability and proximity to family support. The purpose of this study is to examine the cumulative effect of academic vulnerability and family support on trajectory of dropout among cohorts of undergraduate students in Thailand. This study has great relation and use for our review of related literature. Similar to our research, they focus on sophomores and graduating students on why some of them drop out. Findings from their research shows that 20% of students have dropped out of college by the time they reach second year. So using this information gathered from this research study, we aim to use this as part of our research as we gather more data about our problem. Adjustment to college as measured by the Student Adaptation to College Questionnaire, a quantitative review of its structure and relationships with correlates and consequences. So this paper presents a meta-analytic review of the adjustment to college literature. The study states how the student's adjustment to college education correlates with their retention in college. This study is related to our research in such ways that it helps us define the factors linked to the retention of their college education. So using this information, we can add this to our gathered data in order for us to create a more solid groundwork for our research. College students' educational experiences amid COVID-19 pandemic. So this study looks at the COVID-19 impact on higher education, with an emphasis on technology, mental health, and the resources provided by the university. So this study is relevant to our research since it analyzes the impact of COVID-19 pandemic to the students' education and well-being. This study helps us in determining how students' learning problems, stress, and worry became a factor in the rising student dropout rate. This is critical to include in our study since it will help us in determining other factors affecting student dropout.
Why do students drop out of college? This article enumerates and defines some of the reasons why students drop out of college. Why financial reasons become a huge factor why students drop out. And it also shows the pros and cons of dropping out and why it is important to understand both sides before making any decisions. One must outweigh the effects and other possibilities when dropping out. So the article plays a part in our research since it reveals some typical reasons why many students leave the university. Reasons like financial and personal problems play a major role in why people contemplate dropping out. The article will help us in our research and give us a greater insight and views as we conduct our research. Impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on medical education. Medical students' knowledge, attitudes, and practices regarding electronic learning. The purpose of the study is to investigate the effects of online education on the medical students' knowledge, attitudes, and practices while learning during the pandemic. According to the study, many medical students have discontinued or interrupted their studies as a result of COVID-19. While the majority of medical students, especially those attending private institutions, have access to learning devices, the study discovered a range of levels of knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors regarding the new e-learning method. The data from the study has provided us with the knowledge we need from a particular area such as medical education and about how students are faring while learning online and why a large percentage of its students drop out. Higher education dropout after COVID-19. New strategies to optimize success. This article defines the contributing factors that lead students to drop out of higher education and how this affects their personal life and morale. The study discusses the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the student's life and how it becomes a significant reason in why a substantial percentage of students decide to quit. Additionally, the study explains why it is critical to investigate methods for lowering higher education dropout rates, and why this research has been classified as a review of related literature in our study, since it discusses the critical topics pertaining to our subject or our problem. Factors that influence students' decision to drop out of online courses. This study aims to determine the factors that make students drop out of online courses and how it can be addressed. The study discusses about the students who are taking up online courses and their different issues at home which lead them to leave the course they have taken up. It also presented comparative analysis regarding those students who are comfortable with the means of class instructions or not. In line with their research, this will help in knowing some of the reasons on whether these students are comfortable with a new mode of learning and wish to continue their study or not. Student dropout rate on the rise due to pandemic impact. In this news article, it was mentioned that students in Japan reported a rise of dropouts due to economic contractions, as jobs become scarce and household incomes turn unstable. The economic turndown linked to the coronavirus has exposed challenges facing higher education institutions in Japan. It was mentioned in the news article that more than 1,300 students have dropped out of higher education institutions. The statistics on this article shows the increasing dropout rate from universities in Japan. Students who have left their college education explains the reason for the dropout. According to the report, the students' main reason for the increasing tuition fees, loneliness, and lack of enthusiasm to study. So the information in this article will aid us researchers as we comprehend the students' situations better, not only in our country but in other countries as well.
Coronavirus impacts on students and online learning. This study aims to determine the impact of this campus closure to the students, especially to those who are still anxious about the internet and technology access. Further, due to the unexpected campus closure, it affected those students who depend their resources and livelihood in their campuses. The article is in line with our current research because it shows the experiences of the students who are having difficulty in handling sudden closure of school and universities as a result of the widespread COVID-19 virus. At the same time, it emphasizes the sudden change in mode of learning from the institution to one's home, wherein the means of accessibility of education was through online, which can create a great divide in acquiring learning depending on whether they have internet access at home or not. College student depression doubled over pandemic. According to Silva Sacardo, this pandemic has exacerbated the mental health crisis in this vulnerable population. In this article, it shows how this pandemic impacted the rise in the rate of anxiety and depression among young students, and how these situations impacted their decision from dropping out. This article expressed how the increasing levels of anxiety and depression among students created a drastic shift in their lifestyle and study habits. These factors affected their physical activity, resulting to dropout and educational discontinuity. What are the problems that cause students to drop out of school? This study aims to know and understand the possible reason and explanation why some students chose to drop out. What are the core problems that can be their catalyst behind their decision? As we are all aware of, dropping out is a personal decision, but for some students, it's like their only option if they have academic or personal problems that can make their education burdensome. This article presents the different causes on why they chose to drop out during college. With that, it is helpful in our study for we wanted to find out on whether these reasons are as the same as the problems encountered during the pandemic.
How to end the dropout crisis. 10 strategies for student retention. This study aims to know and find ways on how to encourage young people to not make dropout as their academic choice. It is known that the school and communities may have few resources in meeting the complex emotional and academic needs for the vulnerable youth. So this study provided 10 strategies that can help reduce the dropout rate in the different school community. This study expressed how the youth are growing less attached to school and education. It came from various factors and reasons from family to community. Provided with this are 10 strategies that would encourage the youth to continue their education, which is also an answer to our third sub-problem.
School Dropout Study, Philippines and Turkey. Based on this study made by a glimpse at the school dropout problem, these are being suggested. Make the educational system more relevant to the realities. Provide more resources to schools with high dropout rate, cooperation among community and schools, conditional cash transfer programs which provide cash to poor families, mobile teacher where teacher can go to rural areas and teach. This study is about knowing the dropout numbers from both Philippines and Turkey. Also, it shows the different types of dropout individuals during or before acquiring education. It highlighted its preventive measures in order to lessen the number of students who chose to drop out. In relation to our study, this will be able to help in knowing more of our respondents and their influences upon dropping out.
These articles were overall useful and congruent with our study. Not only did they answer our sub-problems, but they gave us further knowledge and understanding before we proceed with our new investigation.